I was totally not accountable as a kid at all. I was horribly lazy and I blamed and made excuses, and I was just the example of not accountability, really up until I had a kid. There's a difference between accountability and responsibility. Responsibility is a knee-jerk reaction to whatever comes your way that you go deal with it. If we can get people in this world to be accountable for their lives and not blame and not make excuses or say they can't do anything about it, we'd have a lot less angry people in the world.
What are 5 questions somebody could ask themselves to determine whether or not they are satisfied in the most important areas of their life?
Question to ask if you're satisfied. I think.
Welcome back, everybody, to Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here by now. We have the real, raw, honest conversations with the needle movers in this world, the impact makers, the influencers, those that are actually helping themselves and other people grow and get to the next level. And today, we've got a really interesting guest with us. I had a chance to have him on my live show. We've not spent much time together, but he goes by the Accountability Dude. And what I really appreciate is he's also the author of the book that's Nobody Cares Until You Do. There are so many alignment moments that were obvious just in the little bit of time that we've already communicated, up until even the tools, the framing, the way that this individual focuses on helping other people. But what's also cool is you can tell the extensive experience that he brings to the table, the credibility and the wisdom that's there, and yet the humility and humor that exists in his presence. I really enjoyed just even our pre-show conversation, and I know it's going to be fire for you all today. And so, Robert Hunt, man, I am so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, because you were on my other show, you may be slightly more prepared for this than others, but the only question I ask both guests on either show is, outside of however I introduced you and whatever I've said about you, who are you in your words?
I'm married to the most amazing woman. I father 2 children. I live in the Dallas, Texas area. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. That's a big deal to me in my life. I love what I do for a living. I have joy in the work I do. I have worked through some really hard challenges in my life to get to a place where I recognize that I have the power to live the life I want. And so I am. I'm pursuing the life I want in all areas of my life. And it's making life very rich. So I'm having a good time these days.
Yeah. I really appreciate that you started honoring your wife right out of the gate. I mean, and I could challenge that and say, well, that's not really who you are. But at the same time, I say I'm a husband and father first. And you not only said that, but you also honored your wife in the process and just the nuance of how you said it. Sometimes it's the intentionality that goes into things that also allow us to extract the joy, right? And when you can consistently remind yourself and remind the world of this wonderful woman that supported you and walked alongside you, you remind yourself of it simultaneously. And it's also a really cool feedback loop. And so that may or may not have even been the intention of why you do that. However, I call attention to it because there are also many people who say that they're a husband or a father or a wife or a spouse or a follower of Jesus Christ, right? These are easy labels to identify who we are, but yet what does that really mean to the individual, right? Even to the pre-conversation we were having, and I'm sure we'll unpack in other components here, it's sometimes people say they're one thing, but everything in their life suggests otherwise.
Yeah.
And this is an area that I call attention and slow down on, because I always start by saying I'm a husband and father first. I've said that for 20 years. My actions were not always congruent. Right. And so there's a lot to be said for that. So if you wouldn't mind just indulging me for a minute, what does it specifically mean for you to be a husband and a father?
Yeah, it's a good kind of statement, because then you have to live up to it. Anything you declare, you have to live up to. That's the beauty of accountability. No one holds you accountable. You hold yourself accountable. But by stating it, you give the opportunity for people to go, wait, I thought you were on a diet. Why are you eating ice cream? You declare it, right? So if I declare I am married to the most beautiful woman in any room, if I declare that I have 2 wonderful children, now people are going to hear, this is what I say. So if I'm in a bad mood and I had a fight with Kathy and I come to the office and I'm like, oh, she's driving me nuts today, they would look at me like, oh, you have an awesome wife. It's got to be you. It's got to be your problem. And at 99% is me. I know that. She really is that awesome. And so when I declare it, it raises the awareness of the world around me that this is what I want to be. I'm just like you. I'm working hard to try and be the best version of myself in all areas of my life, but I'm constantly failing and falling down and starting over and learning and getting better along the way. But when I declare it, it now gives me the opportunity to own it, which is the definition of accountability, is I own it. I'm declaring it to the world. I think it's the same thing as when you go to an AA meeting and they have you stand up and say, hi, I'm Robert. I'm an alcoholic. You're declaring it. And then there's no hiding it. You have to live up to it because you said so. So I like starting like that, because my focus in my time with my wife is the joy that I have every day. And I want to make sure that people know that that's important to me. So if I ever go sour, they can challenge me.
Yeah. I appreciate all of how you responded to that. And I identify with a lot of it. Again, I think I bring it even back for just a second to the fact that I said that for 20 years. And I know for a fact that my actions were not always congruent. I didn't always know that in the moment though. And so I know that I've had lots of lessons learned around this idea of accountability, holding myself accountable, setting appropriate boundaries and holding other people accountable. And for you to say, cool, it's awesome. I'm in a position where I'm 62 years old and I'm still learning to figure out how to enjoy life and do all these things at this point. That also means you've got a whole lot of experience where you've not only been accountable and held others accountable or not been accountable. And so I guess I'd like to just ask the question slightly differently. If you were to look back in your life and define the evolution of your relationship with accountability, what is that?
Wow, I was totally not accountable as a kid at all. I was horribly lazy and I blamed and made excuses. And I was just the example of not accountability, really up until I had a kid. I had a job, I graduated college, but I just barely got by. And I always did what I had to do to get by, but I didn't own it. I often played the victim. I often blamed and was angry at the world and everything pissed me off and everything was someone else's problem. And it was where I kind of grew up being like that. And I got in the business world and realized that nobody really cares. And you can be miserable if you want to, and you can blame and be angry if you want to, but nobody cares. And it wasn't until I had a kid, when my daughter was born, I realized, oh my gosh, I got to get my act together. I mean, this is beautiful little angel, precious little child. And I just realized I was not ready. I was not prepared. And so I think I grew up through that. I learned the hard way, the downside of not being accountable. And I learned the hard way, the upside of what it can really be when you own it. And especially back in 2019, where Kathy and I had $90,000 in credit card debt, and it was killing us. And we just decided we're tired of making excuses and blaming the world, being angry at God for not taking care of our problems. Yep. And he's like, I gave you all that money. What'd you do with it? I'm not going to give you any more. And so we just had to say, this is our deal. We got to own this. And we started the journey of recognizing what accountability looks like. And that was a catalyst of really, truly owning it and being aware and intentional about accountability.
Yeah. When was I know you said that when you became a father, that's when you started to really start to wake yourself up. And I identify with that in many ways as well. What I also, though, believe is that wasn't just a singular moment as a father that you saw and all of a sudden realized maybe I'm not as accountable as I need to be. When was one of the more profound moments earlier in your life, whether it was in the beginning stages of being a father, beforehand or after, one of the more profound moments where you realized that you were not living congruently and you needed to make a change?
Well, I think it's been kind of subtle up until 2019. So if I had to have a definitive moment, it would be 2019, where I really saw the connection. I mean, I can remember back in college, my first semester, getting kicked out of a class on a Tuesday and coming back on a Thursday. And he's like, what are you doing here? I kicked you out. And I was like, hey, that was Tuesday. And he's like, get out of my class. This is college. You're kicked out. You're kicked out for good. And I was like, what's this guy's deal? So I had a whole lifetime of stories like that where bosses expected me to do stuff, where when you run out of money, they don't just give you more money. You have to go make more money. And so there was many, many moments of that. Some things were hard. I got divorced after 10 years of marriage, and in one night lost everything in my house, came home to empty home. And my daughter, my 2-year-old daughter, had been taken with her mom to go live somewhere else. And, I look at that and I was like, did I own that? Did I deserve that? Where is this coming from? And you could be pissed off at the world, but again, nobody cares because it's your journey. It's your junk. And so I had to step back and even to recognize that it's in those hard times is when I learn the most. So I think the way that I have slowly absorbed it has been throughout my whole lifetime. But I think in 2019 was the time I became keenly aware there is a connection between joy and freedom and power and success and accountability. And when I really saw the connection, it was a tool I could use everywhere in my marriage, in my faith, in my health, in my finances. And it now freed me up to pursue the life I wanted in everything I was doing. Yeah. That would have been a turning point.
Okay. You referenced specifically the financial debt as well in 2019 and the moment that you and your wife had. I'm assuming they're somewhat related, but what was it in 2019 that was the catalyst? And if you were to be granular and specific in how you felt, what you were experiencing when you realized that something needed to change, what was that moment like for you?
At the beginning of 2019, we did our annual retreat that we always do together. My wife's my business partner. And we said, what do we want this year to look like? And that year we had recognized how far we had gone from really allowing God to rule in our lives and give us joy. We had become bitter and angry at the world and God, and we were blaming him for all of our bad decisions. And we just came to it in January that year and said, look, if we can't get our act together and turn things around, if God doesn't just wipe out this debt, let's sell the house and start over. And that was a really scary thought. That was a stupid thought. Like, oh, don't sell your house to get out of debt. That's stupid. But according to how the world sees it. But I had equity in my home, and I could like that erase all the debt that I owed versus a 5-year, I hope I get out of debt plan by some other program that Dave Ramsey's or some other philosophy could get me on. So all that year we kept thinking, okay, let's see, can we start a new business? Can we open up another division? Just desperately trying to figure out, because we put a deadline that year. Well, in September, I got vertigo for 16 days. I'd never had vertigo before, but it's debilitating. You can't lay down. You can't sit up. You can't work. You can't focus. It's horrible. After about 10 days, I tell Kathy, we're screwed, because if I have vertigo the rest of my life, I'm done making money. This isn't going to work. I'm never going to get out of this problem. Well, God was kind enough to take that away after 16 days. And it was then we go, okay, that's it. We're going to pull the trigger. We're going to sell the house. And we hooked up with a real estate agent and started the process. But we recognized that you can't kick it down the road any longer. That's one of the traps that we talk about in our book is hope and wait and hope. So we did the blame. We did the excuses. We did the fact that there's nothing we can do about it. And when that didn't work, we just said, well, okay, next year. And then the debt kept getting higher and higher every year. And this year we were done kicking it down the road. And we said, okay, that's it. We're going to own it.
Yeah. You know, there was a really profound line. I forget the TV show that it was in, but it's this idea of someday, right? And the hopes and dreams that you just talked about. It's, well, someday I'll get to that. Someday that'll be done. Someday we'll be free. Someday the debt will be paid off. Someday I'll finally chase my dream. But if you keep saying someday will never come.
That's right.
And it was the active choice that you made in a moment. I also am very, very big in understanding that, like, everything, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I do believe that we are connected. Right. And that things show up in different categories to give us signals. Right. Without going too deep into my story, I'll share with you. When I was a little kid, I was run over by a truck. My left arm was torn from my body, reattached, 24 surgeries. And I had a lot of physical pain for a lot of years. The reason I highlight all this as well is that my body was in a place where it was not functioning. I was in literally debilitating pain for 31 years. And yet the pain wasn't coming from a physical root. It was coming from a misalignment. Wow. Both in my life, but also with unsourced and unprocessed emotional or mental pain and beliefs. Yeah. Right. And I've lived now 2.5 years with zero physical pain for the first time in my adult life. Right. And yet everybody says, whoa, what happened? The reason I highlight this, though, is you just talked about, which I've heard so many times, at a moment, an inflection point, a burnout, a resource fatigue. You had vertigo for 10 days, 16 days, however long it was that you said.
Yeah, 16
Your
days.
body was communicating with you, dude, something has to change.
Yep.
It sounds as if you took it that way.
Yeah.
But I'd also like you to just help us understand, what was it about the being in bed, having the vertigo, having your body show the signs that were enough for you? What made you say, this is it, it's time to go?
Yeah, there's a lot of time of reflection in that. I remember a lot of thoughts going, gee, Lord, I want to work. Why are you doing this to me? What's the deal here? And I believe that my stress did lead to vertigo. The doctors couldn't figure it out. There was nothing in my ears. There was nothing they could give me. I think I was self-induced stressed of thinking of having to sell my house and the deadline approaching and all that stuff. But I also know that God loves me enough to sometimes knock me to my knees so I can look up at him and go, okay, I get it. And I think I probably would have continued to weasel out of it. You know, I remember as we started to work with the real estate agent, and we sold off furniture because we couldn't take it to the new place. It was so small. And, I remember at one point going, hey, we got $3,000 from selling all this furniture. Why don't we just see if we could just like not sell the house? Like that was a big plan. You had $3,000, you know, and my mind was still just desperately trying not to own it. But my beautiful wife, Kathy, kept saying, hey, we know what we want to do. Let's stay focused. And And I think that those moments of reflection are the times where you decide, is the pain of where I'm at worse than the pain of where I'm going to go? And then you decide, okay, it's worth it.
Ties into one of the core philosophies that I've been teaching for years, which is to embrace pain to avoid suffering. And you were existing in suffering already, right? And that's the same concept. It's like your current reality and your future wasn't going to get any better, and you had to make those tough choices. However, I do also have to acknowledge what's real in the world that we live in, right? And the expectations that are driven externally, and the roles that we play as men and providers and all of these things. And here you find yourself, if I'm doing the math correctly, roughly 55, 56 years old, and selling your home, selling the thing that you've built and established for a long period of time. And in many ways, having a complete reset.
Yeah.
Now, it was a choice, but just because it's a choice doesn't mean it's easy or that the process through is easy.
That's right.
Right? There's identity components, there's beliefs, there's emotions, there's all of it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I'd like is if you can speak to what was it like having to essentially start over and reinvent yourself at 55 years old?
Yeah. I never even thought about that. I just needed to fix it. I got to a place where it was worth whatever it was going to take to get to where I wanted to go. And I think that a lot of times we make it harder on ourselves because we set so many rules of why we can't do something. This is why when you have accountability, it requires vulnerability. Real accountability requires that you be honest, radically honest. We actually paid some dude to come to our house and paid him $250 every time he came to our house just to look at our money and go, geez, is that how you spent your money? It was humiliating.
Yeah.
But we had become so deceived, ignorant, numb to what was good financial stewardship. And we justified it's a gym we're working out. There's a $50 gym and you're paying $500 for this gym. They both let you sweat, but we had justified so many things in the way we looked at money. So being vulnerable enough to invite someone into your journey is where you have the power that accountability offers. When you keep it to yourself, then you can change the rules and not do what you say you're going to do. If you really want to change, you got to tell people, this is what I'm going to do. This is why people shy away from making commitments to something, because then people can say, I thought you were going to do this and that, and they don't want it. They really don't want the change. If you really, really want the change, you'll let people into your journey with you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much power to that. And you've referenced that a couple of times. But it's also part of the nuance of the title of your book, right? You've even said multiple times, nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a shit.
Right.
Except that statement as a standalone, it's like, well, shit, that's pretty pessimistic. What do you mean nobody cares? Like, I want to think there's compassionate, empathetic, caring, loving people in this world, right? But then the nuance is until you do.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there are people who care in moments when they care more than the person who needs the change or needs the help.
Right.
Right. We have that. Lots of us who've been givers or helpers or healers have given or tried sometimes far more than the other individual.
That's right.
We can sometimes be on the flip side to that, but there is a lot of truth to that statement.
Yeah.
Right. In nobody cares until you do. And so can you talk about this through the lens of empathy and compassion? And it closed with what you said at the last part. When I opened myself to be vulnerable enough to bring others in, then they cared. Then I had to help. But I'd love to understand your evolution of this concept.
Obviously, people do care, and I do care. And we thought about this long and hard when we decided to call the book this, because Salem and I are very caring humans, and we care enough to kick your butt, and we care enough to tell you the truth, and we care enough to say no. Yep. And it's not that people don't care; it's they can't. Because look, I got enough crap in my own life to deal with. I can't pick up your stuff. Even if I wanted to, I'm not qualified to do your journey for you.
Yep.
And so when you get to the point where you start to say to yourself, this is not something you say to other people, you say to yourself, wait, nobody cares if I'm fat, miserable, unhappy in my marriage, angry at God, I hate my job. Nobody really cares unless I care enough to do something. But then when I do care, I now take the power to do something about it. Everything else before is a victim mindset. Everything else is happening to me. It's unfair to me. This isn't fair to me. But when okay, nobody cares. Now what? Well, now since it's my issue, I'll figure out how to fix it. I might need help from other people. I might need some creativity and some wisdom, but I will own it. I will drive it. I will deliver on it. It's mine. I'm in control. We're moving from a victim mindset where everything happens to you to a victory mindset where you're going to make it happen. It'll take time. The effort to stay a miserable victim and live in a crappy situation is just as much effort to change it and go down the path where you can have joy. Because they're both really hard, but I'd prefer the hard that leads me to the place I want to be.
Well, and I would argue that there's an inverse relationship with those, right? I would say it's less hard to stay where you are and not make the choice in the short term, but it's significantly more hard over the long run, right? To the point of what you're saying in pain versus suffering. And so that's where people have to start to be really clear in who they are, the values that they stand for, the things that are in their lives that are feeding them, draining them, right? Making them feel miserable, to start to get some clarity into this.
Yeah.
It is huge. And, you've said it multiple times as well. It's like, I had to own it. Ownership is the second pillar in the framework that we teach. And there's a few pieces to this, because I do believe, and to double down on everything you've said, the unavoidable precursor to change is acceptance. Until you accept the current state of things, you cannot alter them, right?
Yeah.
Now, acceptance is not the same as ownership.
It's acknowledging.
That's completely different as well. There's a deeper layer. And part of ownership that I really want to highlight, because it comes back to this concept of congruence, right? The world, I teach this idea, and I've been teaching my kids since they were born. The world will never judge you based on your intent.
Yeah.
The world will only ever judge you based on what your words, actions, and behaviors communicate, even if you're unconscious to what they're communicating.
Right.
And so how much has this concept of being congruent and having alignment in who you are, what you say you care about, and what your actions and words represent, how much has congruence and alignment been a factor in your journey?
It's essential at the beginning of the journey that you take stock of where you're at. We have people take the satisfaction assessment at the beginning of the book, and you can go to our website for free and take it without having to give us your information and declare to yourself, how do you look at your personal life and your professional life? If you're miserable with your marriage, if you don't like your finances or your health or your relationship, declare honestly, because no one else is going to see it. It's just for you. If you're not happy, then ask the question, why? And then you'll start to see all the things that are lies and excuses and blame and so things you say you can't do when you really just mean you won't do it. And all these things that you will have to explain to yourself that keep you as a victim. And I think that's where the incongruency comes, because you say you don't like it, but you're not willing to do anything about it. So you must like it. I mean, if you had a dog that was chewing on your couch, you go, oh, I guess I can't do anything about that. You get the dog. You go get the dog. And yet we just say these things are impossible. I just can't deal with it. And we're paralyzed. And I get it. I get it. I know what it's like to be in a really tough spot. You certainly do. But we have a choice. I'm going to be miserable and stuck, or I'm going to be having a hard time to get where I want to be. And that's when you own it. That's the power of accountability. I've seen that in my life. We've seen it in our clients' lives.
How do you help someone become aware?
I think that's what the satisfaction wheel does. You have to be honest with yourself. Sometimes people have skipped when they read our book. They say, it was a great book. And I ask, how was the satisfaction assessment? Oh, I didn't do it. Well, that's how the whole book is based on that. How did you get through the whole book and not do that? But if you're really honest with yourself, and sometimes people will score it based on what they feel like today. Like I had a guy say, I scored this as like a 6, but my marriage has been horrible for years. Well, then it should be a 2, but you've given up. You've said, well, that's as good as it's going to get. Well, that's not true. What was it like the day you got married? What did you think it was going to be like? How were having kids like when you thought about, hey, we're going to have a kid? What did you think it was going to be like versus what is it now? And so you give up and then you score. It's okay. But in your heart, you're disappointed. You're frustrated. You feel a loss. That's the real score. And then when you can really, really look at it honestly, then you can decide, okay, what am I willing to do about it?
Yeah. Well, and I'll play flippant for just a second. And this is just playful because I totally get it as well. Like the answer to the question on how do you get somebody aware, it's it's the survey. Cool. And I also understand why. You've built it. It does have the logic in it. It supports the book. It helps people have a tool that's tangible and real. To your point, though, there is also still going to be a percentage of people that may not use that tool. And maybe there's a reason they don't use the tool that's beyond their interest or desire to take action. And so the flippant side to this is you broke down a very awesome example in a marriage and the rating and where you've given up. What are 5 questions somebody could ask themselves, or 2 questions somebody could ask themselves today to determine whether or not they are satisfied in the most important areas of their life?
A question to ask if you're satisfied. I think that's just a simple question, isn't it? If you're satisfied, then you'd be fine with it the way it is. This is good. I guess the question is to ask the question a couple times the same way. Are you satisfied with your marriage? Yes. Are you really satisfied with your marriage? Yes. Are you sure? And because people will give you an answer they think you want to hear a lot of times, or one that you've convinced yourself is the right answer. But at some point you have to recognize I'm not satisfied with that. Maybe by sitting back and saying, okay, what would it look like if it was to be the way I want it to be? And then where is it now? In business, we do that. I mean, people hire me to come help them with their business challenges. Where do you want your business to be? What would it look like? Here's what it look like. Okay, where are you now? Here. Well, let's go there, right? And then you got to figure out what it takes to get there. That's the same thing in your marriage or your health or your finances. I would like to have $30,000 in a savings account available for anything that ever goes wrong, so I don't have to stress any problems that come up. If I have $2,000 in my account, I know what I need to do. Now, how you do it's up to you. Do you get a new job? Do you spend less money? Do you figure out ways that you could invest that would grow it? Lots of options, but at least you've recognized, are you satisfied in light of what you really want your life to be like? I think the sad part is a lot of people have stopped letting themselves dream that they could have the life they really wanted. And they've just given up to be quietly desperate. And I don't want that for people. I want you to be able to look at the life you really want and go pursue that.
I find the other side of that to be true as well, that there's many people that don't even realize they're not living their life for themselves. They're living it for someone else or to someone else's standard. And they may not realize it until they're 40 or 50 or 60. They may be for the first time just stepping into and giving themselves permission to even ask those questions. And so I do appreciate, it's the iteration in the questions. Questions are what's going to create some clarity and some options and opportunities. But the other side of it is the granularity of those questions, right? Like you gave the example, are you satisfied with your marriage? Are you really satisfied with your marriage? The flip to that as well is, are you really satisfied with your marriage? Well, are you satisfied with the communication in your marriage? Are you satisfied with the intimacy in your marriage? Are you satisfied with the, and you can start taking it into a more granular versus aggregate perspective. Both paths are forcing you to get more specific and not just accept the easy answer.
No,
and so that's what I appreciate about even the way that you just navigated that, and what I know your survey does in a way that's structured and guides people through those iterative type questions in the categories. You did talk obviously about how becoming a father shaped and changed your life. It was the moment when accountability became real. Okay. I feel the same way in many respects. And I think my kids are some of my greatest coaches and some of my greatest mirrors. No doubt. I've learned more about myself in many ways from being a father than I have in anything else I've ever done. That's my experience. May not be yours. However, I am curious if you had to pick beyond recognizing the need to, get your stuff together and become accountable, what would you say are the top one or two things that you've learned from yourself as a result of being a father?
Oh, I grew up with a pretty whacked perspective of being a dad. I had a very bad father who was a very angry man. So I was afraid of him. And we didn't have a relationship. And my folks got divorced when I was a freshman. I was really happy that he was going to be gone. So my perspective of him affected how I looked at my own role as a man. There was just a lot of unknown. So I think I learned how to be a good man and a good husband and a good father on the run. But my kids constantly reminded me how much my Heavenly Father loves me, because I didn't have a definition of a father, but I knew the definition of the Father from the Bible. And I saw a Heavenly Father who loved me. And even though I was clueless as to how to be a good dad or a good husband for that matter, I knew what God's word had told me about his relationship with me. So I slowly started to apply those things as a dad, but it really helped me to let go of some of the hurts in my past. Nobody benefits from my past hurts. I don't. Certainly my kids and my family don't deserve to have the consequences of my past hurts. But you have to be willing to let go of it. I didn't know what to replace it with. And so I held on to it because it was kind of my identity. But as I got closer to understanding Christ, my identity in Christ became the thing that it was my foundation. So I think I've learned, that I don't know anything. My journey as a father has proved that I don't know jack, and I'm just making it up as I go. But I'm thankful that God continues to cover for me in the gaps that I create through my efforts.
Yeah. You talked about this beautiful, tiny, precious little girl I'm a father of a daughter as well. And so I, not only with both kids, my son as well, but with a father-daughter relationship, I recognize the special nature of that. Just don't know the timeline. So it's more a tactical question for a second, but how old is your daughter?
Lauren is 34.
34 years old. Okay. And what would Lauren say about you today?
Oh, she knows I love her. I think she would see me as someone who's always been there for her. I think she'd say that I'm a guy who loves well and loves the Lord and loves her. And she'd think I'm goofy. We have a lot of silly moments together. We laugh a lot. She's very bright, and yet she's very kind. So I think that she would recognize that a lot of the traits that she's created or has picked up have come from our relationship. And I think she'd appreciate me. I'm humbled. I'm awkward by that because that's a hard thing for me to say what I think she would say because that's very humbling. It's very awkward to say, well, she'd say I'm a hell of a dad. You know, I don't know how to. I don't even know where to go with that because that feels awkward to say like I deserve any words. I'm honored to be her daddy. I love her so much. I feel very awkward to have to say what I think she would say.
I realize that it can be a challenging question. And yet I do believe that even your humility at the end of just talking about the awkwardness of navigating that question is real and is also an example and demonstrates the importance of being transparent, real, truthful, and congruent with yourself. Cause you're sitting here like, I think I answered the question, but right. Like even with our little misinterpretation when I can't even remember what the word was that it was supposed to be, but when you said something like, you've got a bunch, it was echo. When I had a bunch of echo and you said, you're like, I'm getting a bunch of ego from you right now. And I'm like, whoa, what do you mean? Like, where's this ego coming? Right? Like, I'm like, what do I need to do to pull back to be more humble? It was like, what am I doing? Yeah. But in this case, there's also a very specific element of language that I want to call attention to, because I do think that words and definitions of words matter. And it is really interesting. Do I have permission to reflect something back to you?
Yeah, please.
Okay. You know, the word deserve, I have found for many people is almost like a negative word. It's like the idea that you deserve something. That's a bad thing, right? And it's tied sometimes to worth. I'm not suggesting that's the case for you. However, you just were like, well, like I'm supposed to deserve the credit or the recognition for what? And yet that's exactly right. Because the definition of deserve is what you believe you're worthy of. Mm. So the question is, do you believe you're worthy of your daughter's love, admiration, and gratitude?
Yes.
And yet you're also trying to remain accountable, because what I also hear, and this is grounded and very clear for you as a father, is for being a father, it's never been about you. It's been about her.
Yeah. And I know in my head and what I didn't do or didn't do the way I wish I could have done, or, she may never know my failures as a father, but I saw them as I was doing them going, well, I wanted to be way more patient in that moment. I wanted to be way more engaged in that moment. I would reflect a lot, because as I would start to think about what kind of dad would I want to be, I made time for her. I was the dad at the school every time there was a place to be there. I was the guy who made lunches for her where I cut out the shapes in her sandwiches, because I wanted her to know in every moment she was in there, she was loved. But I know in my head how insecure I was and not confident in the efforts to do these things, and horribly insecure in trying to raise a human when I don't know anything how to do it. And then you throw on top of that the divorce I went through, and she went to go live with her mom part-time and me with part-time, and all the weird stuff that comes through that, and trying to comfort her, and then my own baggage of having my parents get divorced. I mean, all that stuff combined, my head's spinning with, you suck. And, you're not really sure what you're doing on any level. Yeah. So I think, in my heart, I would be I'd be harder on myself than she might be, because she's not aware of the inner turmoil that was going on.
I'm sure of that. But even to your comment on she may never know, she has the opportunity to know if you choose to talk to her about it. And that's the other side to this as well, is clearly even your own self-check comes from a place of shame, blame, guilt in the moments that you knew you could have been better. Yeah. Not that you're carrying it and it's crushing you today, but enough that even in acknowledging that question, your whole live processing of that, it's like, well, yeah, it's all these little things. But what I would also suggest is the fact that you have a relationship with her, you communicate with her, you can communicate the things that you do with her, is that, guess what? As intentional as you were in all the good ways, even if you were near perfect and you couldn't recall things, you still would have screwed something up.
Absolutely.
And so the gap is, at least for me as a father, is I know I'm going to screw my kids up. I just hope that I will have given them enough tools and have established enough trust and known that they know that from my standpoint, it's objective and non-judgmental based on who they are and supporting them unwillingly and all these things, so that the pathway to help them, if the area that I screwed them up is a place I can help them with later.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just wanted to reflect again, with the permission you gave me, in this concept of ownership. Give yourself a gift and at some point have a conversation with her or write a letter with her and say, look, I was asked a question that caused me to be accountable to myself. And I realized I was all these things to you as a father. But here's all the things you might not know that I carried with me for years and that I still work every day to improve upon.
That's a good word. I will take you up on that challenge.
To your whole point on this whole, like, where does the energy flow? I saw you lock up on that. And then you gave us the beautiful words that followed it.
No, that's
all we
good.
can do, right, is step into every moment with ownership in the moments that we have available to us.
I think when you take care of one thing, you have the opportunity to take care of other things.
Bingo.
So I think, if everything's falling apart, all you want to do is just survive. But as you get more and more things under control and you're healthy and focused on things, then you can step back and go, hey, what about the stuff that I may have felt insecure about raising Lauren? She turned out to be an awesome woman. Yeah. And I should celebrate that and let go of some of the things that I would say are insecurities. I'll always in the back of my head feel like I regret that she couldn't be in a house with a mom and a dad together and those things there that put her through the journey. But that would be a nice letter to write.
The flip side to this though too is do you really want your kid to grow up in a household where there's not two loving, supportive, healthy relationships in a parents?
No.
Right. And it's like, what's worse? It's to your whole point, is like the pain of what I have right now worse or greater than the pain I could experience in the future. And, you could have stayed and argued and fought and maybe she wouldn't have turned out so great.
Yeah.
The other little nuance in this, and I promise I'll stop reflecting back on you and ask more questions, but I appreciate the detail. The word should. Should is a shame-based word and it implies whoever you are, whatever you're doing, it's not good enough. And you, in some of the reflective elements, you're like, maybe I should reach out to her and talk to her. Maybe I should tell her these things, or maybe I should have done this, or I should shame. What could you do or would you do differently if you now know what you know now, right? Or with different variables or with different situations. And so in this idea of accountability, what I believe is, look, growth and opportunity go out the window the second shame and blame exist. Why? Because we're not in a position of ownership, which is exactly what we were talking about before. And so even in the frequency that it puts our energy into, I think you could find even just small nuances that just take you even further on your journey and the work that you're doing with yourself and with others.
I love that.
And take that for what it is, my friend, because we're all still on the journey and I know I need all the help I can get. So
I'll take all the help I can get too. Thank you.
Yeah. You are on this mission to really help others understand what accountability looks like in action within their own lives. I realize your own personal story that's played into it, but why is this the megaphone that you want to hold, and why are you the person to hold it?
Well, it's what I do for a living. I create monthly meetings with business owners who come together to create an opportunity for accountability. When you run your own business, if you decide to change your mind and do something really stupid for your company, who's going to call you out? And it's a lot of chances to screw up. So we voluntarily come together and meet to create the opportunity for accountability so we can be our best. So I've walked that. I've seen it in my own personal life where the freedom and power of accountability changed our life, our marriage, our faith, our health, everything. I've seen it in my client's life, and I've seen it as I help other people to understand the freedom that comes with accountability. So no one else is talking about it, so I figured I would do it. So I'll take the rein and go forward with it because I think it's really essential. If we can get people in this world to be accountable for their lives and not blame and not make excuses or say they can't do anything about it, we'd have a lot less angry people in the world. We love to blame everybody and everything, the economy, the president, the global warming, pick your topic. Everybody hates everything. And it's so annoying. It's so draining. But if we could just realize, hey, look, own what you got and do your best with that and focus on that. And if everybody owned their own junk, this would be a very different world.
Life would be a lot different. I agree. I completely agree. Accountability also can easily fall into the category of what's considered to be a buzzword, right? And with all buzzwords, there's the organic definition, call it Webster's, right?
Yeah.
The intended definition. There's the mainstream or cultural definition, and then there's the deeper nuance of what it really means. Where do you believe people are going wrong with accountability in the way they view it or the way they use it in their lives?
I think accountability is a threat to most people. I think people don't like the word. They feel like you're threatening me. I'm going to hold you accountable. The truth is no one can hold anyone accountable. And I'd love to discuss that truth right there. But when you decide to look at accountability as freedom and power and not a threat, it's a tool, it's a weapon in your hand. The simplest definition for accountability is you own it. And if you own it, it's yours. What do you want to do with it? And it's at those moments that you blame, make excuse, say you can't, or wait and hope. But when you own it and you go, I don't like this. Great. What are you going to do? And then you start a plan to go chase it. And the journey to do that is also what we outline in the book, because we don't want to just have you realize you're screwed up and you shouldn't do this. We want to empower you to go, look, you have a tool in your hand right now. Go own it. Go do something about it.
Yeah. Even what you just said, though, I think is really powerful. You really can't hold anybody else accountable.
No.
And that's a really subtle understanding that I think only comes in a lived experience where that can be true. I'll share a brief one for my own. Both my kids are brilliant. Love them to pieces. I had a very different upbringing than they're having, right? We've definitely broken generational patterns. There's a lot that is, I know I'm still conditioned to react to things that I really don't care about if they do. It's just how I was raised, right?
Yeah.
I know these certain things. I did not believe in many cases that I had many options or flexibility because, again, I grew up in a slightly different household and there were more repercussions for my actions than my kids ever face. Yeah. However, we also want to give our kids all the support that we need. And there was something that kept happening. And she's been in talk therapy and we counseled with her therapist around this. And I was like, well, what happens if she just continues to do these things? I can't stop it. I'm not going to go over and grab her and move her and physically force her. And that's the conundrum I was facing in this moment. It's like, how do I get my daughter to do this? Right. And not just from a repercussion standpoint, but the only way I could get her to physically stop is if I manipulated her physically in a way that is not appropriate. Right? I don't need to put my energy and my man strength on this little girl because of a control thing that I have.
Yeah.
Right? So I can't hold her accountable. I can teach her accountability. I can show it to her if she chooses to do something by helping make sure that there is a repercussion. But this concept is really hard for people to swallow. And you said you wanted to play with that a little bit further. So why is it that you believe that so many people believe that they can hold someone accountable? And how do you help them surrender to the fact that we really can't?
And that's important because if we can stop using the phrase, I'm going to hold you accountable, then we can start to dial down the process. When you say that you're going to hold someone accountable, you're assuming somehow you're going to do it for them. You're going to make them. You're going to cause something to happen. And if you're an owner of a company and you've got all these employees, you say, I'm going to hold them accountable for these numbers. Okay, well, when you don't hit the numbers, what happens? Do you fire everybody? No. You go, okay, well, you guys didn't hit the numbers. You got to get the numbers. And I'm telling you next, and then next one doesn't, they hit the numbers. Okay. I'm telling you, and there's nothing let's say you ultimately just are done with it and you fire everybody. They leave. They're still not accountable. You're the one who was accountable because you fired everybody. You said that if you don't do this, I'm going to fire you. And they didn't do it. So you fired them. You're accountable. Congratulations. But now they're gone. They're taking their lack of accountability somewhere else. And they haven't learned anything. They just hate you because you're this miserable company. I think back to when James was in maybe junior or sophomore year of high school. Our rule was if you don't get B's, you don't get to watch digital. No TV, no Xbox, all that stuff. Well, at the end of the semester, the school summer came up. He got a couple C's. And we said, hey, there's no TV this whole summer. His head exploded.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And I said, hey, by the way, until you get a report card, you can't get the privilege back. So we're actually talking fall before you can go back and watch TV or play Xbox. He melted. It was brutal. And he just kept ranting and raving for days and days and complaining. And finally I said, okay, fine. I cancel the punishment because the punishment was there to create the opportunity for you to be accountable to the results we wanted you to get in school. But if it doesn't work and you're not going to be accountable, then the punishment doesn't have any value. And all I'm doing is pissing you off. So we'll cancel it. Go enjoy your summer, watch a lot of TV. And hopefully next year you'll figure out something that will motivate you to get the grades that you should get. But I'm not achieving anything if I'm just punishing. And he's not being accountable through that method. At some point, you will decide, I want this for me. And that's when you own it. And that's accountability.
And the key in there that you also said is that the punishment didn't necessarily teach anything.
Yeah.
And the goal is to teach ownership, ultimately, I believe, based on what you are suggesting. And so in this case, you gave an example of how you help navigate the discussion, bring it back into a business, right? This leader that wants to hold the company accountable to the numbers for the quarter.
Right.
They can't hit the numbers for the quarter. Again, the penalty means nothing other than they're mad at him.
Right.
But the lesson is what's missed. How do you help leaders capture the lesson and then teach it?
The first thing is they've got to model accountability by the way they behave, because anything you say they should do and you don't do it is a joke. And so when we as leaders say one thing and then do something else and no one ever addresses it, then they're proving they're not being accountable. We're going to do this. No, never mind. We won't do it. So if they're not modeling it, that's the first problem. The other thing is that you're trying to teach them to be accountable. You have to create the expectations of what that looks like in the organization. You have to proactively do things. There's a difference between accountability and responsibility. Responsibility is a knee-jerk reaction to whatever comes your way that you go deal with it. Employees don't hit the numbers, I yell at them. Employees don't hit the numbers, I fire them. Okay. That's responsible. But at the end of the day, if you know that people aren't going to hit the numbers, what could you do proactively to help them hit the numbers? Get them all sales training. Work on the marketing department, get better leads, have daily updates instead of monthly reviews. There's all kinds of things that you can proactively, that's where you're being accountable. So you need to teach your employees the same way. What are you doing proactively to create the results you want? If you struggle with this, go proactively get training, go proactively read a book or watch a video. It's the proactive nature that allows us as an organization to all together become accountable. But if we just wait to respond to everything, that's just responsibility. And that's frustrating. That's leading by correction. That's no good.
Yeah. Well, and the reality of it is responsibility and respond are often interchangeable. But in this case, responsibility becomes reaction more often than not an actual response.
Yeah.
Right. Proactive is where it's measured and regulated. And so I really do, that's how we have to teach everything. It's reverse engineer, teach, empower, give tools. Because without that, it's barking orders, not leading. And it's a completely different model. Yeah. My friend, you've been really valuable with us today. I guess I bring this full circle as well, because I always like to get into the real time. You know, you've talked about some of the challenges that you faced. You talked about the big transformation that took place in 2019, all these little different lessons littered in throughout your entire life. But you now find yourself at 62, finding a way to enjoy life every single day. You're enjoying it. You're accountable. You're doing these things. Yet there is no final destination. There's constant evolution of self. And so where does your life find you? What season are you in terms of what you're focused on, where you're growing, where you're learning to hold yourself accountable to this next level of where Robert's going to go?
I'm always getting better at accountability. Something I've always struggled with is my weight. I've always been overweight. And then there was different seasons of my life for different reasons. I would lose weight or get in shape or whatever it was. Now I'm 62. Getting in shape means, getting out of the chair easily. So it's just these kind of the ideas of what things are, what I want to do. But I make excuse for why I don't do something, or I blame something for why I'm having health issues with my weight. But the reality is, if I don't own it, I'm never going to get better. And so I'm working at applying accountability to every area of my life, bit by bit, constantly. It's just never done. And then when you get a little better, you look at it and you go, this is okay. But really, if I was to really tell you what I want my life to look like, it's really up here. I was pressing to get it out of where it sucked. Now it's good. And I want to get to okay. And I want to get to really good. So you feel the confidence and the energy to go make things better, working on my marriage better, working on time with my kids, working on having friendships. I want to have friendships in my life. Something I've created in the last 5 years is a world of margin, where there's room for everything I want. So I don't ever get overloaded. And I get things done because I'm creating a world where I have room for the things that go wrong. And with that mindset in relationships and money and time, everything, I'm constantly refining what that looks like. And I'll be doing that till I'm dead.
Yeah. Well, I believe that about you. I understand that venture and every single day. And I get asked often, when is enough enough? And I was like, it's enough up until this moment, but there's another moment, another 5 moments, another 5 minutes, another 5 days, another 5 years. And I hope that wherever I'm at today is not where I peak. Wherever I'm at in this moment is not where I peak, and that I just am stagnant here until the rest of the time I live. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to attempt to give you a chance to hold yourself accountable.
There you go. Good job.
See the catch in the language
there? Good job, man.
See, I'm going to attempt to have you have the opportunity to hold yourself accountable. You've talked often about owning it, about stating it, about publicly saying it. You did just say weight is a specific thing that you're focused on. It's been a challenge for years. Get granular and specific for me. Yeah. What are you going to own about your weight, your health, your body in this next window that you can hold yourself accountable to with your actions and be the example and model for those that follow you?
Yeah, we've talked about what would it look like for me to have health. And if all I'm chasing is a weight loss, then I do something, I get it, and I go right back to being unhealthy.
Yep.
So I've been working with Kathy to say, well, what do we want our life to be like when it comes around to health? So part of it is how much I eat and what I eat. And so she's walking with me through that. If I don't want to have snacks late at night, don't buy snacks. Because I'm not going to hop in my car and drive to 7-Eleven to get a bag of Doritos. If I don't have snacks at house, I won't be eating them. So sure. Case closed. So we make shopping decisions that are simple. And I could say that the gym is not holding me back. If I don't go to the gym, it's not a problem. I have enough health as a 62-year-old dude to do the bike for half an hour, to lift weights, to do squats, do pull-ups, all those things I can do. I probably won't be as strong as I was when I was 30 and 40.
You don't need to be.
I don't have to be weak. So we're setting realistic expectations, and I'm not going to go get a shot that makes me so sick that I lose weight. I'm going to bit by bit own the idea of the kinds of food and the way that we look at food. So we've been talking about that a lot. I feel like I'm a lot closer to a vision of a life that would allow me to be able to be always at the weight I want to be and exercising and being mobile. That's my vision of what I want my health to be.
And it's absolutely possible. I know for a fact that it is. I am somebody who dealt with weight for most of my adult life, and yet this same rhythm that led to me being able to get pain-free. I have been able to do what I want, move. I make generally healthy choices, eat what I want, all of the different categories, and I've been within a plus or minus 5-pound range for about a decade now.
Nice.
Which I never thought I'd be able to do. Now, all of it had to do with the proactive relationship and understanding and defining with clarity, what does health actually mean to me? Yeah. Right? And what are the elements that drive that health? And can do so consistently and sustainably over time. Yes. And so all of what you just talked about, you unlock one thing, you unlock a whole bunch of things. Well, you aren't ready to do this yet, right? Now this is this is the next part of your journey. So my friend, we're going to have your book, obviously any other resources that you had given us to have in the show notes. Nobodycaresbook.com. People can get to this quiz and be able to actually find out where satisfaction lies in their lives and the steps required to get there. What other resources or information or knowledge would you like to leave with them beyond what you already have today?
We're on Audible now. So if you'd like to hear a book versus read a book, Amazon has it on Audible, and we narrate it ourselves. Go take the satisfaction assessment and be honest and start with that. I think that's a healthy way of declaring to yourself what you want your life to look like, looking for the things that hold you back and trap you as a victim. And then be proactive about it. Invite someone into your journey. Find someone who you can be honest with. If the people around you always bring you down, don't tell them about your quest to be better. Find someone who actually will champion the good things you want to do, the way you want to have your marriage, the way you want to have your health and your finances. Invite that person into your journey and let them know what you're going to do. Create the moment of accountability by letting them know what you want to do. They won't hold your hand or babysit you, but they can be there to ask a question. And if you give them an honest answer, you've created a moment of accountability. Yeah. I think that's a simple starting point.
Robert, I'm so grateful for your presence with us today, for showing and modeling what accountability can look like, and for the wisdom and knowledge you continue to share in the world.
Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and for those of you that just watched Robert flip open his lid and jump in, accountability is not just something that you're born with. It's something that's learned. It can be taught. It can be grown. And sometimes we have moments in our lives that help us realize that we haven't been accountable to ourselves, and that's where it needs to start. If you've ever felt like a victim, if you felt like you didn't have clarity, you couldn't live the life that you want, are you being honest with yourself? Are you being vulnerable? Have you stepped into a place of ownership that allows the world to know who you are and what you're working towards? All these little things stack and they compound over time, but what happens? You unlock one thing and then there's a compound effect that unlocks other things. But with each new layer of awareness, with each new layer of accountability, with each new layer of you owning who you are, you get deeper layers of freedom, more joy, more fulfillment all the way through. And he just talked to you about every piece of that. What is it going to require? It's going to require you to care first. It's going to require you to flip open your own lid and scan your can. And others will follow. That's the path. See you on the other side.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible, but to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there.